Hello and welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. I'm Jessica Christie, CEO of Beauty Culture Med Spa and the founder of the new functional and regenerative business, Cultured Wellness. From my start as a physician assistant to now not only being a practitioner but leading my own businesses, I've been on a unique journey through health, beauty, and entrepreneurship. Join us as we explore everything from skincare secrets to leadership lessons. Whether you're passionate about beauty or striving to balance life's challenges, this is your space to connect, learn, and shine. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Curated Beauty Podcast. And today, I'm excited to dive into a topic that resonates deeply with me as an entrepreneur, as a leader. I recently read the book, The Self-Managing Company by Dan Sullivan. And the reason that I did that was because I actually joined the Strategic Coach, which is an amazing business coaching platform, lots of different types of entrepreneurs. Previously, I was in the hardest to leave ever business coaching group with KLC Consulting, Kaylee Lindholm. And that was hard for me to decide to try something else because I got so much out of it. And when I did decide that, I definitely was looking for something that was very comprehensive and maybe just looking outside of what we do in aesthetics, because I want to evolve my business outside of just aesthetics and have. And so reading this book was basically because they sent it to me. And he has a goal of writing a ton of books with people. He has a whole concept of who, not how. So how can he write all these books? Well, he doesn't ask himself that question. He asks who can help him write these books. And so I picked this up mostly because it was a book that I felt like I should read, because it was I almost feel like I've enrolled in a university and I'm doing the prep work before I start in the fall. I was really, that kind of irony was not lost on me this morning as I read this entire book. And he makes them where you can read them in about 60 minutes, which takes me considerably longer because I take detailed notes and I deconstruct everything and I make it personal. And so I just wanted to share with you some of the pillars that I feel like I took away from this book. Pillars of creating a business that can thrive and grow, even when you're not involved as the entrepreneur every minute in every detail. And so this is definitely for entrepreneurs. This is also for anyone who feels like they're overwhelmed in their life and they need to start delegating things and finding who's. And so it's really, really relevant. And I think that beyond anything, it's very thought-provoking. And how do we gain confidence? I sell confidence in my business. And how do I personally seek out confidence? We're going to talk about that and how it becomes this steamrolling, snowballing thing that happens when you're spending your time creating something that can sustain without you, instead of spending your time every minute micromanaging something. So if you're a micromanager, listen up. If you're like, hell yeah, listen up. Yeah, this concept isn't just about delegation. It's about building a company or an entity or your household that embodies your vision, your values, your life philosophy, while empowering other people or your team to take ownership and really drive success for you, but also for themselves. So this book has been really impactful for me, even in the short term that I've sat with it this morning, but I know all the concepts. I have been studying him for a while. And so it's just interesting to revisit things from different lenses. And I'm working on these principles really actively, as we're doing this podcast. Clearly, I was reading it myself. And so I just want to share some of the things that stood out to me personally, how they've influenced my approach to business, to leadership, to personal growth. These insights, they have really shaped how I manage my company, but also really have reinforced my commitment to one of my big goals, which is leadership and creating a culture where every team member thrives and that they're not just showing up for a goal of working for me for 25 years. Their goal is personal in their development too. And how can I be that sort of capsule to catapult them into those things? And so let's dive in and explore these powerful ideas together. So first of all, the philosopher John Baptiste defined an entrepreneur in 1803, I believe, as someone who shifts resources from a lower yield of productivity to a higher yield of productivity with a greater yield. And so I feel like I've been freed up from all of my activities. I used to see patients every single day. I used to be involved in nitty-gritty of like ordering or managing my schedule or lots of the things that I used to do. And you can ask yourself, what things are you doing too? As we go along, I'll kind of ping you a little bit. But what things I used to do that took up and ate up a considerable amount of my clock in the day, I've freed myself up from those. And I've allowed myself, first of all, the permission, but also like the physical being to focus on what I love to do, what I do best, and the things that bring in the most money to my company, and things that are maybe perhaps scalable too. And once you do that, that is where you really can have like this creative flow and really focus on growth relations within your business. So I think about like, how is my company, my medical aesthetics company, Beauty Culture, growing? How is Cultured Wellness, our functional medicine practice, growing? And so I reflect back to the time where I decided to make this leap. And as an entrepreneur, no one told me to go become an entrepreneur. And I had to make two decisions very clearly. I had to decide that I wasn't going to lean on anyone else for my financial success, and that I wouldn't ask for any opportunity in the marketplace unless I was creating value, and unique value at that, for other people. So I embarked on this entrepreneurial journey, and I really started to strive. I didn't know it back then, but I started to strive for 4 different freedoms that I learned from Dan Sullivan, and it brought concrete life to what I was doing. Freedom of time, which I wanted this both inside of my work and outside of my work. Like, how do I want to spend my time? Thinking about that in a big way too. Like, how long do I want to live? So that was really, really key. Freedom of relationships. So getting to decide who I want to work with. In terms of my space, there was a time where I walked in and didn't want to work with any of the people, with the exception of a few, but like literally almost all the people that I worked with, I was like, oh, I don't want to see them when I walk in here. Like, I didn't want to, it like gave me the cringiest vibe to have to stimulate conversation with these people. So that's bad. And also freedom of relationships outside of work. Like, and in the middle. So like strategic partnerships, vendors, I don't want to have to communicate with anyone that I don't genuinely enjoy communicating with. And if I start to get vibes that I don't want to have a relationship with someone, I find my way out of it. I want to show up for my family and spend time with them. And so time and relationships start to go together. And then money. I think that freedom of money, there's no restriction to how much money you can make. You are the one who puts restrictions on that. And I fully believe that. I'm embracing that. Although money isn't my number one driving factor, it is a freedom, and you can't do all the other things without money and freedom of money. And then freedom of purpose, which is probably one of my biggest ones. And I used to think it was just freedom of purpose of my business, but it's really, truly like freedom of enhancing my life philosophy and the way that I want to live, regardless of how other people want to live. Like, how do I want to live? Things that are most important to me, and that is valid and okay, and I can claim that space. And like, knowing that, I think that any entrepreneur wants a self-managing company, but you can't experience any of it without freedom, or to be freed up and have all of these sorts of freedoms. Like, you really can't have a self-managing company if there's no one to do the things that you need them to do. And the conundrum is that is like, you're not hiring all these little robots that you're enslaving into your business and paying them. Like, you are really trying to create this for them too. And that's kind of the magic and the secret sauce, and how it maintains a culture and fun. I think that is super important. I think that that's really relevant to me recently, because I've realized that there are holes in jobs that I need other people to do that I don't like doing. And I'm not saying, again, that I'm going to dump it on someone else because I don't want to do it. I'm going to find someone that is their unique ability, and that's what happiness and success looks like to them. Like, they like showing up and doing those things. So it's a very interesting concept. The company can manage everything that is predictable. So like my inside team, everything that's predictable, like cash flow, how much money we need to bring to keep the lights on, how much money each team member brings in individually. Like all of that stuff is very easily managed by the company. And then there's me. There's this innovation side of things, and that's me. And that's only possible when I'm freed up from everything that's predictable in my organization. So like, I don't need to micromanage things. I don't need to just sit in that data. Like I can take that and use it, and it leaves me to focus on what I do best. And so this is where I constantly look for vision, for innovation, just greater and greater value, and really looking to transform our marketplace and do things differently than other people do that. So one of the first concepts and pillars that this book starts with is talking about, number one, the ABC model. So looking at ABC, activities that are annoying. B is activities that can become boring. And C is the focus of where you enjoy spending the most of your time. So things that you find fascinating, things that you find captivating, these give you energy rather than using it up. So as an entrepreneur, you should be spending all of your time on C activities. And you really should try to create a baseline for everything you do and quantify how much of your time are you spending on A and B activities. Like you need to get the A's off of your plate immediately. And B activities are ones that like they used to be exciting, but now the result is guaranteed. Like you know what's going to happen. Like just it's okay to constantly look at your life every 90 days and shift things that you no longer find exciting, enjoyable, profitable and delegate or disregard. Like they maybe just go in the trash. So identify any time spent on A, get it off of your plate. B, really start to delegate to other people where that may be their unique abilities. Delegate and automate as much as possible. I'm doing that a lot right now and using different services like a medical scribing service that we're looking into, building an online training platform for wellness and eventually aesthetics. This will be a place where I train my providers that I hire, and I feel comfortable hiring for the things you can't teach and then teaching them the things that we do. But I also will be able to scale it and be able to sell it to other people. So right now I'm building one that is how to integrate wellness into your aesthetics business. So if you have a medical aesthetics practice and you're like, gosh, I really want to offer hormones too, but that's like, how do you learn that? I'm building it because that's a huge ask and I get DMs every day. And that's not stuff that I'm going to give away for free because I've spent so much money developing these programs. And it's not like I just can refer someone to one because I've taken so much from so many different places and I've invested years into developing this. And so now I'm bringing formality to it. And so that is a way for me to automate something that could really be a huge revenue generator. And guess what? I find it really exciting to build this. We have an EMR that's automating a lot of things and creating reports that are very unique that I need them to create. We have website and SEO and lead tracking, lead sniping, like all of those things, social media. That's one that I still need to delegate a little bit more, but I do enjoy doing it. So is it still exciting? Not as much as it used to be. And I think people get nervous that I'm going to stop doing my own social media. I just am maybe pushing some of my accessibility into things like this. Like I may be more passionate about my podcast right now than creating some sort of like dancey or lip syncy type of a reel on Instagram. Like I personally feel like I am just a little bit over that right now. And I want to reach people in a bigger way. And I recognize still that that's important. So what I've been doing recently, and I just realized this, is I have been resharing a lot of what my team is building of the things that I used to build when I was in patient care, celebrating and highlighting them and allowing my time to be spent on something that I find more exciting, which is developing these really hopefully thought-provoking podcasts. So there's that. The self-managing company, gosh, that is meant to continue to be bigger and better and this version of yourself that is fascinated and motivated. And so within that, there's these 4 C's, and it's commitment, courage, capabilities, and confidence. It all starts with a bigger commitment in life to this bigger goal that you haven't achieved before. And you really, truly need to block out what everyone else's achievements are. And, I wrote a lot of notes in this book as I went along and recognized these certain concepts. And I will share like tangible things, but, like looking at how other people are pricing or You can always look for inspiration of like, we've moved towards outcome-based treatments for filler instead of being like, every syringe is $800. Like, it's like, no, no, no. I now look at what do I pay for these tools that I use to create an outcome? What tier am I in? How many am I using? How much time does it take? How much do I pay my team? How much does it cost to turn the lights on? Like cost of goods going into this very complicated formula. And how much does our business need to make per hour? And that's how we price things. Like it makes 0 sense to double the cost of a syringe when we're using 8 of them in the same time that we would use 1 on someone else. Like there's so much that goes into it, and you need to think about things differently than how someone down the street is doing them if you want to scale ahead. So yeah, having a bigger commitment and blocking out everyone else's achievements and the way that they do things is so important. So you have to start with that commitment, and then you have to have new capabilities because they get created by making their higher level commitments to something else. And then after that, you then have this other C word, courage, when you really have no idea how you're going to get from point A to this new point B that you've decided you're going to. And then commitment and courage are like these raw materials for creating higher levels of capability. And so the payoff of all of these is confidence. And like people always ask, like I want more confidence in business. How do I get like that? Or even our patients that we're selling confidence to. Well, you want more confidence, you got to put in the work to like back it all up and like reverse engineer from here. So the 2 ingredients that make a commitment different than like, oh, I wish I had this is a measurable result. Like everything should be measurable and a deadline of when it's going to happen. So any sort of goal that you set has to be like these smarter goals where they're measurable, they're attainable, they're a little scary because that's an important component. And also that they have a deadline attached to them. Like, when are you going to accomplish this? And then how are you going to reward yourself too? New capabilities never appear unless you have the commitment to step into it. So if you never have time for your mind to create these like energizing ingenuities, or you don't have creative time that you're setting aside to push through these new ideas, then they're never going to come to fruition. And, once you really, again, back to that confidence, like once you really achieve those goals and you have a whole new level of confidence that makes your experience just super intense and it expands your perspective. And the crazy thing about that, though, in this book also relayed that is that it's never permanent. And one thing about entrepreneurs is eventually that confidence that you gain from achieving something new eventually wears off and it loses its lackluster, so to speak. And you really need to find something else. So higher confidence equals uncertain things becoming more certain, unclear things becoming more clear. We talk about clear as kind all the time. Like clarity is amazing. And then complex things becoming more simple. So with all of those C's, your commitment to something new, the courage to do it, the capability, like you are capable, knowing that you are, and then all of that feeds into the confidence. That's where you get the certainty and the clarity and the complexity becoming more simple so that you can grow. And growth is your highest form of leadership. If you're not growing as a leader, and we are all leaders, we've talked about that before too, you're not a leader if you're not growing. That's just as simple as it is. So I think we all want to be a leader and want significance in this world. And we really all are. There's someone that looks up to you and there's someone that considers you a lead in their life. You have to be growing and putting that time in. Okay, another concept is the gap and the gain, which this is one of my favorites. So there's this concept of ideals versus goals. And ideals are like this wish, right? And a goal is, here's where I want to go, and I can see where I reach it. Ideals can't be measured. And like there's something where you feel like, oh, if I had this, it would feel so different. And you're really setting yourself up for failure because they really can't ever be reached. We want to think in terms of goals. And I really do like the concept of smarter goals. If you don't know what that is, just look it up. I use it every single day in my journals. I am constantly working towards my smarter goals in my full focus planner. And really, smarter goals are, again, something that you have a goal statement, you have motivators, you have next steps, you are going to celebrate when you get there. They're, again, measurable, attainable, and there's a timeline attached, and you're going to know when you've hit it. So really, really important to think in terms of goals when you're trying to think between ideals and goals. And these can be measured, and you know when you reach them. And so there's two ways to measure them. You can look ahead and see how far you have left to get there, which can kind of be daunting, or you can be where you are and look back and see where you started and look at how far you've come. And that's where the whole concept of the gap and the gain comes in. The gap leads to unhappiness, and the gain leads to happiness and confidence. And that confidence concept really keeps coming back. And the gap is this like permanent distance between you and your actual achievements and your ideal. Like, it's disappointing, it's frustrating. Are you ever really going to reach or attain what you're setting out to do? And the gain is where you have this ideal and this wish to kind of illuminate the path, but you are looking back and seeing how far you've come and raising your confidence and making, like, you create these new goals and you're committing to new things and you're seeing more capabilities, and all those C words keep on coming back to you. One thing that I do every day with my team is we start the day with a daily check-in. We do this through an internal communication system. We use Slack, and every single day at 8 a.m., automated, there's something that pings us to say, list your wins from yesterday, or list your wins and what did you complete yesterday? So that's the first bullet point. And I encourage people to end a day and think, wow, what were my 3 biggest wins today? Because that is really setting you up for that forward progression of like building a muscle to know that you are appreciating the gain. We also talk about what are your 3 priorities and then what are any obstacles. And so that's an opportunity for us to help each other as a team with obstacles that we may be seeing. But the most important thing is recording 3 wins every day really, really helps you recognize your progress. So super important, live in the gain, don't live in the gap, because it's a lot different of a mindset, and it's a mindset that's going to equal success in the long run. Okay, so this whole concept, and this is another pillar of free days, focus days, and buffer days. When I first started my business and I hired a couple of people that were really, really good patient care coordinators. One of them, her name is Heidi, and she introduced me to Dan Sullivan, actually, and the concept of his work. And she was like, you really need to schedule free days. And I had no idea what they were, but she sent me some podcasts to listen on them. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And she would like mark off 3 to 4 days a month where I wouldn't see patients, because as the entrepreneur, I was showing up every single day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, because we work 1 Saturday a month. And I was seeing patients all day long, which, guess what? That led me for 0 creative time to actually innovate. And although I loved what I was doing, there was a ceiling to it. I had achieved it, and it was starting to become like one of those B activities, right? And so she put these days on my schedule, and I was like, wow, a free day? And first of all, it was really hard for me not to work on something or come into the office. I felt guilty not doing that. I think that's a lot of like upbringing. That's a loaded question, but I felt like, who am I to not be doing what the rest of the team is doing? And I started to like them. And then there was a little bit of like scarcity, like, ooh, maybe our numbers are down or something. I don't know why, but my husband took them all away and like put patients on. And I remember Heidi being like, no, we need to protect those days. And it was like kind of this butting heads situation where it was like, wow, maybe we like, what's going on here? You know, like, I don't know if free days are necessary, but I've kind of started to like them. Oh gosh, we got to make money. Like, I don't want my business to go out of business. You know, I didn't have like the confidence in my sales yet, or have a firm grasp on my numbers, which again, if you don't care about money, you still need to know your numbers. And so anyway, I wasn't really looking at free days in the right way. Free days are the most important and they should go on the calendar first. They are scheduled for rejuvenation, and the greater number of free days that you have, the greater your productivity will be, which is really hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around. It was for my husband, but thank God that Heidi kind of persevered and pushed through. And slowly, it was actually all of my team that like one girl that used to work for me, she was like, we're just closing your books in 2024. And I was like, whoa, what? Like I would have never made those decisions myself. Hello, unique abilities. Hello, people that can see things that you can't in your own business and really give you perspective. And that's what free days do. They give you perspective, they give you clarity. And just again, the more free time, the greater your productivity, which trust me on that because it has happened. And it's really, really hard for me still to not work on free days. But I just look at them ahead of time and I really focus. Focus days, those are for productivity. Those are like you're grinding all those hours doing something that you love. It's like an athlete, a professional athlete. This is their game day. Like they are coming out for success and we've prepped for this. It's greater performance, it's achievements, it's results. And so it's really, really profitable. And then there's buffer days, which are your prep days. So this is going to help us anticipate these focus days. Again, relating it back to an athlete, it's like practice and all the little biohacking things that we do to really show up on game day. This is really going to help expand future advantages. So it's all the planning, all the teamwork, all the technology, investigating, like it's all the stuff. And then we have unique abilities. So unique abilities are something that I love to talk about. Entrepreneurs, they have this beautiful thing where they get to organize their systems from scratch. And although this is great, it can be daunting, especially for people who've never done it before. And in the medical aesthetics world, none of us were entrepreneurs. We were all showing up and operating within systems that we didn't organize ourselves. So our team works best when everyone is only focused on their unique ability, which is a really hard concept to grasp, but it creates a really high importance of hiring diversity, especially in areas where you as the entrepreneur are lacking. And you really want to be hiring in areas that as an entrepreneur, you are weak in or you see weak links in your team. This truly is like permission for everyone to embrace their unique abilities, not just you. And it's really where freedom begins. Your own judgment about your experiences are 100% valid, and how you enjoy spending your time or relationships, like vendor relationships or people that you're working with, all those things are so valid. And this is where freedom begins, when you're allowed to have judgments about your own experiences and who you are and how you show up and what success looks like to you. And so as an entrepreneur, if I focus on all my attention on my own unique abilities, then I'm demonstrating what everyone else in the company needs to be doing to become more self-managing. And it's just so symbiotic because each time you're doing things not within your unique ability, or when you stop doing things that are no longer in your unique ability, you allow someone else to embrace and identify their unique ability, and you identify gaps where you need to specifically hire people. So that's kind of an emerging theme in my office right now. Like I either need to find out who wants to be like a true go-to client concierge head so that I can really focus and nurture leads, or I need to hire that person. So we spend a third of our lifetime working. And so it better be something that we enjoy doing. By embracing unique abilities, it generates more energy within the culture of your company. It creates value. It transforms people's lives. If you don't care about that, you probably won't have a company that's withstanding all the tests of times of life. But it continually accelerates your progress and your results. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary of being open as a business. And within 5 years, I think there's like a 95% or like a 75% failure rate. I can't remember. It's very, very high. And I think it's 95. But we hit the Inc. 5000 list at 551. And so I was almost in the top 500. And that comes with a lot of energy, a lot of unique abilities. It accelerates our progress and the results. And so it's really exciting. Another concept is called the largest check. Okay. So this is a pillar in business. Checks are entrepreneurial building blocks. So you really want to benchmark yourself. I do still get uncomfortable talking about money, even though I've had a very successful business. I just never want to appear, especially being in medicine, that that's what I'm about. But your current largest check is the average of the last top 5 who brought in the most revenue for 12 months. And so it is something to look at. And then your next largest check represents the next big jump in your capability and like what projects you're working on. And so you really want to set your minimum check to free yourself from the bottom thinking and really free yourself to grow higher. And so when we think about like the concept of a dream check, it keeps you continually striving, improving, growing, and being never satisfied with the status quo and always, looking to up your game. And I think that something that really helped me with like the financial side is, first of all, it costs a ton of money to turn the lights on. It costs a lot of money to provide for all the families that are on payroll, but you're always upping the check with more value to your patient. If you're not bringing more value, how dare you ask for more money for something? But that's the point. Like you should make the value so high. Like Alex Hormozy says, like the patient would feel stupid for saying no and not choosing you. And that is really what you want to strive for when you're thinking about like your dream check. The next one is the 10x mind expander. So 10x is easier than 2x is another one of Dan Sullivan's books. And it's really like this crazy, scary concept of stretching your brain to a form where it can no longer go back to what it was before. You take last year's revenue and multiply it by 10. Okay. So whatever your revenue was as a business, multiply it by 10. That's 10xing. At this point in my life, when I look back at when my husband and I first started, like we take home 10 times more than we did combined. And, so like when you think about the concept of 10 times your revenue, that's daunting, right? But when you think about it from a reverse engineering standpoint, we as a household have already 10x'd ourselves in the past. And so we didn't know how we got from there to here back then, but it required a lot of courage and commitment and not going back to where we previously were. And again, we had stretched it to a form where it was not going to return. So the only way is forward. And you want to really look at, when you think about 10xing yourself again, you're shedding the 80% of the stuff that you're doing and you're focusing on the 20% that's important. So 10x frees you up from that 80%. If you're living 2x and you're just working harder, or like you're just linearly expanding, then you're holding on. That means you're holding on to 80% of the past and you're never going to 10x in a time frame that's appropriate. You want to give your team a long time to 10x. 25 years is something that Dan Sullivan's books usually reference, and it gives you ample time to actually make it happen because it becomes somewhat more believable that it actually will. So how did we get to now 10x? By being capable, by being creative, by being credible, and by having connections. So really, really interesting concept. And then the lifetime expander was another interesting pillar in this book. You tell yourself how long you want to live. Maybe like Dan Sullivan says he wants to live to 156 years old. Why do people die at 80? Because they set themselves up 20 years before that they had 20 years left and they kind of just started to prepare for that. Why does Dan Sullivan want to live to 156? Actually, it's because he wants to see a full century. So I think he was born in what year was he born? I don't remember. But basically, when he dies, he will have completed a full century. So I was like, well, I was born in 1983. So maybe I should plan on living to the year. I can't do math, but like I think it worked out to 160. But seeing the whole turn of a century is pretty cool. And thinking about why people set themselves up to be expired, friends, money, and purpose were all important little sectors there. Very important in longevity, because if you don't have one of these things, friends, money, or purpose, you're going to lose your will to be alive. And so once you've changed your mindset that like, if I say I'm going to live to 160, then your mind opens up to different technology, science. You start to appreciate your body. I was telling my dad this, like, if the first car that you ever got was the only car that you were ever going to have, think about how differently you would treat that car. That is our bodies. So yeah, treating it right. But also, like, I will say that as I've looked at longevity differently and wellness and health, I have been introduced to some crazy technology that has started to shave years off of my life. I just recently did a DNA test after a couple of like biologic or advanced growth factor stuff that I had done. And my biologic age was in my early 30s and I'm in my early 40s. And so I just think about having, again, that as a measurable baseline and something to work backward toward. Once you've changed your mindset, I'm telling you, like, retiring seems like you're retiring into a black hole and you're just starting to prepare to die. I don't think I'll ever retire. I think that I will keep running toward a self-managing company. So those are the big pillars in this book. I hope that this resonated with you. I wanted to share it with you because I think that it touched me and kind of rounded out a lot of the concepts I've learned so far. And this is how I think. This is how I like to spend my time. I like to this would really be sort of like a buffer day where I'm planning, I'm expanding my future, I'm thinking, I'm not working, versus being a more focused day. And try to not make your days flow into each other. Really start to plan out on the calendar, like start with a couple free days and see how it feels. And then you'll start to think about the days that you are on so much differently and what takes precedence. And they really truly go in the form of free, focus, and buffer. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I welcome you to find me on Instagram. I'm all linked in the show notes for everything. If you are interested in how we do what we do, just follow along and sign up for our newsletters. And we have a lot of virtual wellness tools that we utilize so that if someone is a potential patient, that you're able to kind of get a 10,000 foot view of what we do and whether or not you want to align with us and let us take over either your aesthetics or your functional medicine care. If you are an entrepreneur and you're thirsty for how to integrate the wellness side into your aesthetics practices, perhaps, I'm building those things, and that's how I'm spending my focus days right now. But I thank you for spending this short little brief moment kind of chatting it up. And I am always open to topics if you want to DM me in Instagram. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Curated Beauty Podcast. If today's discussion sparked your curiosity, or if you're ready to take the next steps in your wellness journey, we invite you to explore our new virtual wellness tool. It's an easy and convenient way to assess your needs and connect with our expert team for personalized guidance. Visit our website, beautyculturespa.com, to get started, because your health and beauty deserve nothing but the best. Until next time, stay radiant and take care.